Okay, you guys. So, I've been completely consumed by K-pop demon hunters for weeks now. And after diving through every fan theory, every Korean mythology, and honestly, probably way too many hours analyzing that final scene, I finally have the perfect vision for what K-pop Demon Hunters 2 needs to be. This isn't just a sequel pitch anymore. This is my blueprint for the most emotionally devastating and romantically satisfying animated film that would have every fan sobbing while simultaneously screaming about how perfect it is. Today, I'm presenting my official vision for a sequel that puts the Roomie and Geneu love story at the absolute center of everything because, let's be honest, that's what we're all actually here for. And if Netflix doesn't make this exact movie, they're missing out on the greatest supernatural romance story ever told. The film opens 6 months after Guimma's defeat, and Roomie is living what should be the dream life for any K-pop idol. Huntrix is dominating global charts, they're selling out stadium tours worldwide, and the rainbow Moon above Seoul pulses stronger than ever. But Roomie is slowly falling apart inside because every single day she can feel Geneu's presence calling to her from within her transformed Sageum sword. It's not just her imagination or trauma response, it's literally him, his soul fused with the weapon during his sacrifice. And the connection is so intense that sometimes she'll be in the middle of a performance and suddenly feel overwhelmed by memories that aren't hers, glimpses of his 400-year existence that hit her like lightning. The sword doesn't just glow differently now, it actually responds to her emotions, pulsing with warmth when she thinks about him, growing cold when she tries to push the feelings away. And Mira and Zoe are watching their leader slowly consume herself with grief for someone the world believes is gone forever. But here's where the story gets absolutely heartbreaking because Geneu is conscious within the sword, experiencing every moment of Roomie's life, feeling her pain as if it's his own, but he can only reach her in brief flashes of sensation and emotion. He's been trying desperately to communicate, sending her warmth during her loneliest moments, giving her strength during difficult performances, but something is actively blocking their connection, creating this agonizing barrier between their souls but grows stronger every time they get close to a breakthrough. What Roomie doesn't realize yet is that Guimma, though banished to the demon realm, is still conscious and manipulating their bond from across dimensions because he knows that their spiritual connection represents the greatest threat to any future plans he might have for revenge. The psychological warfare is incredibly insidious because Guimma isn't targeting Roomie's old insecurities about being half demon. She conquered those fears and fully accepted herself in their first battle. Instead, he's weaponizing entirely new vulnerabilities that emerged after Geneu's sacrifice, whispering doubts about whether trying to bring him back is selfish when she should be focusing on protecting others, whether what she feels is actually love or just trauma and grief, whether Geneu found peace in death and she's being cruel trying to drag him back to a world full of pain. Every time Roomie gets close to a clear connection with Geneu's soul, these guilt-ridden thoughts flood her mind, making her pull back just when breakthrough seems possible. And to be honest, fans have been speculating about this exact scenario. The potential for romantic angst here is off the charts because they're connected but separated, together but alone, and every day they can't properly reach each other is torture for both of them. This is when the Four Guardians mythology becomes crucial to their love story, because Roomie starts having dreams where Geneu appears to her in this ethereal, spiritual form, and he's trying to tell her something about the ancient Korean legends that she's been dismissing as just historical background. Through these dream conversations that feel more real than her waking life, he reveals that the original demon hunters weren't just a trio, they were 4 guardians representing the cardinal directions and elements. And the reason the current Moon is rainbow-colored instead of the traditional golden is because it's incomplete, missing the 4th guardian who represents fire and the south.
The romantic tension here is incredible because these dreams are the only place they can truly be together, talking and touching and sharing the emotional intimacy they never got to explore in life. But even in dreams, Guimma's influence seeps through, cutting their conversations short with waves of guilt and doubt, making Roomie question whether these meetings are real or just her mind creating what she desperately wants to hear. And every time she wakes up, she's back to the agonizing reality of carrying his soul in a weapon while wondering if fighting for him makes her selfish. The plot kicks into high gear when Huntrix receives an invitation to the International Idols competition in Vienna, and this is where the global expansion serves the romance perfectly. The competition is actually a secret gathering of demon hunter factions from around the world, because supernatural attacks are increasing globally, and their different magic systems are all struggling against new types of threats. We meet the Japanese hunters, led by Akari, a fierce anti-idol whose fire-based powers mark her as the missing vermilion bird guardian, Chinese hunters using traditional instruments, and an American rock band whose chaotic energy creates its own supernatural protection. But the real revelation comes when these international hunters reveal that they've all been having the same phenomenon, weapons and artifacts that seem to contain the souls of fallen comrades, suggesting that Geneu's survival isn't unique, but part of a larger spiritual mystery.
The romantic development gets even more intense when Akari, who can sense fire energy, immediately recognizes that Roomie's sword contains a living soul, and she becomes the first person to validate what Roomie has been experiencing. More importantly, Akari's fire powers can temporarily strengthen the connection between Roomie and Geneu, burning through whatever has been blocking their communication, allowing them to have actual conversations where she can see and hear him clearly for the first time since his sacrifice. These scenes are going to destroy everyone emotionally because finally they can talk about their feelings, and Geneu's first clear words to her are a desperate apology for all the pain she's been experiencing, explaining that he's been trying to reach her constantly, but something has been actively fighting his efforts, cutting their connection whenever they get close to true communication. He reveals that he's been experiencing every moment of her grief as his own, that watching her suffer has been worse than any torment Guimma ever inflicted on him. But more importantly, he tells her that every doubt she's been having about their connection, every moment of guilt about being selfish, every fear that she's imagining their bond, none of that is really her. It's Guimma's influence poisoning her thoughts from the demon realm, and that his only reason for holding on to existence is his desperate love for her and his determination to find a way back to her. But this is where the Saja boys' tragic backstory becomes essential to solving their problem, because Romance and Baby, who have been hiding in the human world since Guimma's defeat, approach Huntrix with information about soul restoration that could bring Geneu back. They revealed the devastating truth that they were once human idols who made deals with Guimma to escape the crushing pressures of the industry, with Romance seeking relief from emotional manipulation, and Baby trying to avoid hypersexualization. But their transformation into demons separated them from their own humanity in ways they're still struggling to understand. Their knowledge of demonic soul magic is the key to helping Geneu, but it comes with a terrible price, because attempting soul restoration while the four guardians remain incomplete could shatter the Hanmoon entirely, leaving the world defenseless against a new threat that's been building in secret.
This threat comes from Roomie's mysterious father, and he's not just any demon. He's an ancient Dokebi prince who has been the guardian of Korea's natural world for over 1,000 years. And his love affair with Roomie's mother was this epic, forbidden romance that created a child who could bridge the gap between human and supernatural realms. But he's been trying to reach Roomie for her entire life, and his increasingly desperate attempts to contact his daughter are destabilizing the spiritual balance that keeps the demon realm sealed.
The romantic parallel is perfect because we have Roomie and Geneu separated by the barrier between life and death, while we also have Roomie and her father separated by the barrier between human and supernatural worlds. And both relationships represent love that transcends impossible boundaries. The competition in Vienna becomes this incredible pressure cooker where all these emotional and supernatural threads converge. Roomie is pushing herself to the breaking point, trying to strengthen her connection with Geneu while also preparing to integrate Akari as their fourth guardian. But the process is incredibly dangerous because combining their powers without proper preparation could kill them all. Meanwhile, the surviving Saja boys are sharing their knowledge about soul magic while also processing their own redemption arcs, with Romance learning about healthy emotional connections through his growing friendship with Mira, and Baby discovering his own worth through Zoe's patient acceptance of his past mistakes. The romantic subplot here is beautiful because both former demons are learning what genuine love looks like by watching Roomie and Geneu's spiritual connection. And it's helping them heal from the trauma that led them to make their deals with Guimma in the first place. The turning point comes when Roomie's father makes contact during the competition's opening ceremony, and his overwhelming elemental power, combined with Roomie's emotional instability, creates this massive spiritual storm that threatens to tear apart every magical barrier in Vienna. But instead of being a disaster, this becomes the moment when Geneu's consciousness fully manifests, using the spiritual chaos to break free from the sword and appear in visible form for the first time since his sacrifice. The reunion scene here is going to have every fan absolutely losing their minds because he's still translucent and ethereal, but he's there. He can touch her face and tell her how much he's missed her, and their first kiss as souls who have found each other again creates this explosion of golden light that begins the process of completing the Four Guardians formation. But the real romantic climax comes when they realize that restoring Geneu to full physical form requires all four guardians to combine their powers in a ritual that's essentially a magical wedding ceremony, with Roomie and Geneu declaring their eternal commitment to each other, while Mira, Zoe, and Akari channel their elemental powers to weave his soul back into a living body. The cultural authenticity here is incredible because we're drawing on Korean wedding traditions and shamanistic rituals, with the other guardians serving as spiritual witnesses, while Roomie and Geneu exchange vows that bind them not just romantically, but magically, their souls becoming permanently linked in a way that makes them stronger together than they ever were apart. The visual of the scene with traditional Korean wedding elements combined with supernatural light shows and the aurora-like honeymoon overhead would be absolutely stunning and emotionally overwhelming. But just as the ritual reaches its most crucial moment, Guimma makes his desperate final gambit, reaching across dimensions to try and corrupt the ceremony itself, sending waves of dark energy that attempt to twist their love into obsession, their commitment into possession, their sacred bond into something toxic and destructive. This is his last chance to prevent the completion of the Four Guardians formation, because he knows that once Roomie and Geneu are truly united, their combined power will make it impossible for him to ever manipulate the spiritual realm again. The battle here isn't fought with weapons, but with pure emotional truth, as Roomie and Geneu's declaration of love becomes a literal shield against Guimma's corruption, proving that authentic connection can defeat even the most ancient evil. The ritual works, but it also completes the Four Guardians formation and triggers a massive evolution in the Han Moon itself, transforming it from a simple protective barrier into a living ecosystem that connects all the international hunting factions into a global network. Geneu returns to physical form, but he's fundamentally changed by his time as a soul, with new spiritual sensitivity and the ability to communicate with the natural world through his connection to Roomie's father. His first act upon returning is to properly confess his love to Roomie in front of everyone, leading to this epic romantic moment where he tells her that experiencing her emotions as his own taught him what true love really means, that it's not just wanting to be with someone, but wanting to carry their pain and share their joy for eternity.
The film's climax involves using their completed Four Guardians formation to help Roomie finally meet her father face to face. And this becomes a beautiful generational healing moment where three love stories converge. Roomie and Geneu represent love that conquers death itself. Roomie and her father represent love that transcends species and prejudice. And the memory of her parents represents love that was so powerful, it changed the fundamental nature of magic itself. The Dakabi prince reveals that he's been trying to reach Roomie because he wants to give her and Geneu his blessing to rule over the natural spirits together, essentially offering them dominion over a supernatural realm where they can be together forever while still protecting the human world. But the most romantic moment comes when Roomie chooses to stay in the human world instead, because she realizes that their love is most powerful when it's serving others, and that their story can inspire hope for anyone who thinks their love is impossible or forbidden. Geneu's response to this decision is to renounce any claim to supernatural power and choose mortality, accepting that a limited lifetime with Roomie is worth more than eternal existence without her, which demonstrates the depth of his character growth from someone who once traded everything for fame to someone who would trade everything for love.